All right, howdy tech artists. We didn't get to space switching today, and so we are going to focus on space switching in this intermediate lecture. Hopefully we'll get done with this quick. I don't have a whole lot of time for this. I've got other projects to work on, but let's make sure that this gets going. Oh, let me swap these around. Okay, we've already done this, and so we've done the stretchy limbs. And okay, we've got that going. All right. Boom, boom, boom. All right, space switching. Now, this is typically done usually on IK type armatures, whether it be arms and the legs. And the reason for it's IK is because you typically want to change space. Your hand or your end effector or your foot and its end effector typically reside in character space. But what happens if you want your foot to stick? Then your foot will become part of the world space, and your foot is going to stay solid and planted as your body moves around it, and your foot is always going to be located. And that's an example of space switching. Or maybe if you wanted to do a character had an IK arm and they wanted to grab a hold of a table, and then no matter where they walked around, the hand still stayed attached to the table, but as the body moved around, the arm adjusted in order to accommodate for that. So that's another example of how the character could use space switching to make sure that the IK end effector stays where you want it to do. Or you can move an object to that. And so ultimately, you can create as many different targets as you want. That means you can get your hands to stick as many different places. So typically, by default, there's at least 3 targets. Usually that's world space. That means just that the object stays just parked into the world. There's usually the center of gravity. That means the hip. That means the hand stays attached to the hip, and no matter where the hip goes, that's where the hand goes. Or usually that's where the head goes, because usually the characters are putting on that anime or that manga contemplative mode where they're holding their chin, and no matter where the head goes, the arms are going to follow. So these are the 3 spaces and the 3 target spaces that we're going to deal with. All right, so let's get a hoe and create this. So I'm going to be using a character of a version of Zangief that it already has the IK-FK switching on the arms and the legs on it. And I'm going to go ahead and hide Zangief. And so let's say if we wanted to, okay, I'm going to turn this over to be my IK solution. Okay, now suppose that we wanted to put space switching onto the hands. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to start with the hand controller itself. I'm going to go ahead and grab that. We've got the hand controller. Okay, we've got the hand controller. And it already has an offset associated with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a oh, okay. So if we put it on the parent constraint, if we put it on the parent constraint the way it is now, it's we're going to lose it. So what we want to do is we've got the hand, and then we've got its offset as its child of the offset. So what we want to do is put one more offset in between the hand and the offset. So we can select the hand controller, and we're going to group it to itself. So I've got my hand control. Got to come over here to edit, group, and so now it's grouped to itself. And then I'm going to call this my group control underscore IK underscore hand underscore L underscore space group. That's a hell of a name, and I hope I don't have to type that in too many times because I'm sure I'm going to muck it up a few times. But there it is, Control IK Hand L Space Group. Okay, we've got that created, and so now what we have to do is create the parent constraints. So what we're going to do is, remember we said we've got we've got 3 different spaces that we want our character to move in. We've got the world space, the center of gravity space, and the head space. So ultimately, we're going to look at the root control, the body IK spine control, and the control for the head. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of these. And all right, so here's our controls. And so I want to grab the root. That's our world space. And then I'm going to grab the body IK spine. This one here. Going to control select that one. So that's going to be our second space. And then the last one I'm going to do is for the head. And the head is, okay, right here. That's the control for the neck. Are there any ones underneath that? No, there are not. So we've got the control for the neck right there. Okay, so we've got all three selected. And then I'm going to select the space group guy that I just created. Control select, and then for the hand, there's my space group. Now, if we come over here to constrain, move it over into parent constraint, I'm going to make sure that the maintain offsets is true. So we're going to hit apply. All right. So now we know that we have three different spaces to do this. So this is the root, the hips, and the head. And so now it's going to maneuver around wherever those things go. But we can control this. We can give it a little bit more control. So we've got the hand controller. I'm going to expand this, and then we're going to put this onto the hand controller itself. Now the hand controller, this is just like the foot controller where you have the peel heel and the stand tip and the toe tip and so forth. For the hand controller, we're going to add some attributes to this. So I've got the hand controller. Go to attributes, add attribute. We're going to call this. Let me expand this a little bit. We're going to call this one world. And then the minimum is 0 and the maximum is 1. And then we're going to click add. Now we're going to do this 2 more times. We're going to do this for the center of gravity. COG 0 and 1. Add. And I'm going to do this for the head. Just go type that in, head. 0, 1. Okay, now if there's any more spaces that I wanted my character to be able to attach to, maybe like a table or a tree or a building that we wanted to put his hands on and never stick around, this is the place where we put all of the possible space groups that we want to do that. We'd add them all here, but right now we'll get by with having the 3 spaces we have here. So we've got the world, center of gravity, and the head. Okay, so we could use set-driven keys, expressions, or connection editors here. We could use the node editor. We could use the expression editor. We can even use the connection editor to control all this stuff. But for this, I'm going to keep it simple, and I'm going to just use my expression editor. I'm kind of a one-trick pony, and I tend to do things like along, and ultimately I'm an expressions guy, so I'm going to stick with that. But stick with the type of connections that you'd like to keep. So let me go over here. I'm going to go to Windows, Animation Editors, Expression Editor. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select my space group object. And you notice here, the space group object is now connected to the root, to the hips, and to the head, all 3 at the same time, and they're all sharing it. So ultimately, we've got to kind of move things around here. And this is going to be a little bit difficult, so I'm going to make sure I've got this translated right. This is the space group. We've got the control root W0. And these are, oh, it's the shape we want here. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to expose the shapes here. And then for here is the space group shape. Well, I can't figure out where to put this on, so I'm going to ignore the shape. So I'm just going to type this in here and do the best that I can. And I'll make it a little bit bigger. So we got the control IK hand L space group. And control IK hands parent constraint. So there's my parent constraint. So I'm going to make sure that I'm going to underscore it. And it's parent constraint. Parent constraint. And it's always parent constraint 1. If you look at here, we see it's parent constraint 1. Parent constraint 1 dot CTRL underscore root W0. And that's what we're going to duplicate right here. Let me expand this out a little bit more. And we're going to say all this is going to be equal to the CTRL control quote, and we did this to the IK hand, so underscore IK hand underscore L, and we called this the world. So dot world. Okay, let's see if this ultimately works. I'm going to click on here and hit create. And okay, it's obviously it's controlled. Okay, so we've got the switch on there that's working on there. So if we got that to work, let's see if we could do this again for the hips or the center of gravity, and once again for the head. So I'm going to copy all of this, and I'm going to paste this right here, and I'm going to call this, instead of expression 2, I'm going to call this space switching. And then edit to make sure it's in there. But I'm going to change the where it says the space group parent constraint 1 control root W0. This is going to be control body IK spine. Oh my, this is going to be nasty to type in. So this is control underscore body IK spine. Control underscore body IK spine. Let me make sure to just span it out a little bit. Body IK spine. And this is W1. And now this is going to go to the control IK hand L. Instead of world, we're going to go to COG. I think it's capital COG. Is that right? Edit. Okay, that's right. It was capital COG. All right, we've got that work, and so we're going to do one more. We're going to do it for the head group. Okay, so we call that, and so we put that under the neck control, and so it's control underscore neck. And W2. Neck W2, and then we're going to equal to control. Instead of IK hand, we're going to set that to and we're going to change this to head. Okay, I'm going to hit the edit. Okay, no problems there. Okay, so this is actually it. This is it. This is it, gang. Get out your cameras. This is where it's saved. Now let's test to make sure that this is true. Okay, so for the IK hand, right now, it's currently 0 in the world, 0 in center of gravity, and 0 in the head. Okay, so right now, if we were to move our character around, it's going to follow around wherever the character goes. So if we move this around, so it's staying in the same space no matter what. Now, if we were to go ahead now and select this, and we say we want it to be the center of gravity. So that means if we wanted to move this character onto the character's hips, I would set this to a value of 1 for the center of gravity. And let's see, for giggles, let's go ahead and move this arm out here. Let's push this back a little bit. Let's rotate it into place. And let's move this off just a little bit more. So let's just say it's always grabbing right here on his hips. Hey, now, because we have the center of gravity turned on, notice that whenever I move this around, then his hand always stays in the same direction. But notice that when I move the hips around and rotate this, that the arms and so forth, it's maintaining into the center of gravity. And so it sticks with that and onto here. And if we were to move this, then you'll see that the upper body moves, but the hand stays stuck to the hips. So we can move the upper body, but the hand stays stuck to this. And if we were to move the elbow, that you'll see that the pole vector stays in the exact same place no matter where we move the pole vector, and no matter where we move the arm, the hand always stays to the same place. Okay, so that works for the all right, so we got that. So we've got the center of gravity equals to 1 there. So let me move this 1 more. All right, now what happens to do with the world? Okay, suppose we left it in the world. Okay, 1. So that means you are no longer in character space, we are in world space. Now, if we wanted to move the character around in the hips, right here, and move them back and forth, notice that the hand stays in the same place. That means it's always in the same place in the world. If we move this around here, then moving around, it's always going to be moving around here. And so you would move this in order to keep your hand into the world space. Like if you wanted to place this onto like a bookshelf or onto a table and say, okay, here we're going to put this onto a table. It's right here. And then we're going to level it off the hands. Okay, so you got that. And so now if we wanted to move this character around inside of world space, so that the character now is moving anywhere forward, backwards, and now we'd have to move the upward space, the upward values along just as well. We've got both of those. We'll move this and move this, but the character's hand is still going to be staying in the same place. So that means it moves in world space. So let's go and see if this works in headspace. All right, so I've got that off there. So let's put this in headspace. So I'm going to put a 1 here in headspace. And now I'm going to put my character here so that he's grabbing his head. He's like an anime character. He's in a pensive thought. And they're always cupping their chins. Like, I wonder if I'm going to eat an apple today or not. I do not know. Then we can move the pole vector around. It's like, Okay, so we're in world space now. So if I move the character around here, the character is like the head is going to stay wherever the head is going. If we move the upper body, then it follows along where the upper body is. So my hand is now attached to the upper body. Now, of course, if we were to move the overall character at the root, then everything is moving as expected here. And so what we have to do, we've got three different spaces in which we've parented this to. That is the world, that's the hip or the center of gravity, and the headspace. Now these don't have to be the only ones. You can have as many as you like or as few as you like, and it really depends on what you want as far as the on what you all want and need. And so we have those three spaces. Now what if you had a prop? You say a prop. Okay. Now suppose the character was to grab a prop and you wanted that prop to stay attached to the character's hands. So I'm going to turn off my templates here to hide them up a little bit. And so once again, we're all going to be putting in parent constraints. So I'm going to drop in a quick cube. Create cube. Okay, we've got a cube in there. And I'm going to scale this sucker to about about 4 and 0.5 and 8. Okay, so what we have is a cell phone, in our character. There's our little cell phone here, and we want the cell phone to go into the guy's hands. All right, so I'm going to go and modify. I'm going to freeze the transformation, and then I am going to delete the history. All right, and now we've got the object, the P cube. I'm going to call it cell phone. And so I've got the cell phone here, and then I'm going to and I'm going to create a self group around this. And then I'm going to call this group, I'm going to call this phone group. Yeah, they're the service provider. Okay, so there's the phone group. And so what we have to do now is create an anchor that's supposed to be like in the world space. Well, we got an anchor for what the hand space is, but we need an anchor for a world space. So we're going to go ahead and create a locator. And so that locator is located right at the origin. And so it's right there as it is. And I'm going to call this just world space. Okay, I've got my world space locator. That's it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start creating parent constraints for this. So I'm going to grab the world space, and then I'm going to grab the character's hand joint. So where's my hand left? All right, we've got that. Whether it be IK or FK. And so we've got that. And then we're going to select the phone group. All right, so now we're going to go into the rigging, constrain, and we want the parent. And then where it says maintain offsets, we're going to turn this one off. It says, okay, we don't want it to maintain the offsets because we want it to get sucked into one space or the other. So I hit apply. And so it's in between. Why? It's because right now it's halfway in between the root space or the world space and the hand space. And so now what we have to do is create a way to control whether we want this phone to be in hand space or in world space. So where are we going to have this phone group? And then for the phone group, I'm going to go ahead and hide all of these attributes. Boom, 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 hide selected. And then I'm going to create a new attribute. And I'm going to call this attribute, I'm going to call it hand space. And the values is between 0 and 1. Hand space between 0 and 1. I'm going to click add. All right, close that, and you'll see that we now have the hand space there sitting between 0 and 1. Okay, you'll notice here that we've got this hand space. Now, when we want this to be a value of 1, we have to, that we want this to be able to be 1. So what we'd have to do is then on the hand space, here we want this to be at 0. And you'll see that it snaps right to the hand. And I forgot we haven't hooked this up to the hand space, but if we wanted it to be in pure world space, we would make this a value of 1 and make it 0, and the object is back into the world space. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to associate this so that it's always, that starts off in hand space. So I'm going to make that 0, and I'm going to put a value of 1 in here. So it's always in hand space. And then I'm going to click in the node editor. All right, we're in the node editor. And so I've got the, well, let's see, do we have anything in here? Yeah, so we've got the phone group. So we've got the phone group, and I'm going to add the operator, and then I'm going to select the phone group parent constraint. So I'm going to open this up. There's the parent constraint. I'm going to add this in here. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of gobbledygook going on there. Enter 3 of these on every node. Hold on a second. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to expose each of these. So I'm going to hit 3 on this, and it's going to open it up. 3 on this, and so it's going to open up. And so here we have all this gobbledygook going on, and it's all opened up. And so there's a lot to see. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to connect the phone group, the hand space output. So here's the, whoa, okay, here's the phone group, and we want to get the hand space output. We want that to go to the parent constraint and the hand LW1. So it goes right into here. Now we're going to do a little bit of math here. And then we're going to add a reverse node. Kind of hit tab and look for a reverse. Here we've got a reverse node. So I'm going to connect the phone group, the hand space output, into the reverse. And then make sure that's just the input X. And then I'm going to connect the output to the world space output. And so I'm going to click this on here and the output X, and I'll put this into the world space output. Okay, so basically we're doing an inversion here. Okay, so I'm going to move this off to the side. And so now here we are in the phone group. Right now it says hand space. It says 0 because that's because it's in world space. And we'll click on 1, and we're now in hand space. And so we can control how much space that we want this to be, because 1 is in the hand space, and if we go to 0, it immediately zips down to the origin. Okay, so now we can move where the phone sticks in hand space or in world space. Okay, gang, that's about it that I wanted to cover as far as space switching is concerned. You can put this into your characters. Your animators are going to love you, and they're going to have a great time playing around with all this stuff. Okay, great. I will see all of you again after you get back from GDC. We're going to show lots of great stuff, and you know, you can do HLSL. All right, I'll talk to you later.